Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 10 Part 86 based on novel. So let's start. Demonic chi raged and Yuan power surged over the land. A terrifying fight was occurring here. This astonishing battle was the first of its kind for many millennia. In summary, the place was divided into two giant battlefields, namely the land and the sky. These domains were where the Alliance army fought the Devil Prison army, and the battle between the upper echelons of both sides took place. The higher altitudes was more or less where Lindong and the Ancient Masters fought with the highest-ranked members of Devil Prison. Both parties had fought since ancient times, and they clearly understood each other's strength. Such a battle was unnaturally intense, and both sides were merciless in their attacks. Boom boom. Lindong was currently engaged in battle with the Third Seat King. He was not weaker than the latter since he had advanced to the Divine Palace level. Hence, it was impossible for the Third Seat King to easily defeat Lindong like a year ago. Swoosh! The two had transformed into streaks of light that weaved together in the sky, while the clouds continued to rush past both of them. At such a great height, it was possible for them to see two torrents smashing against each other when they turned their heads down. Murderous desire and the smell of blood dashed towards the clouds. Lindong's body was wrapped in the ancestral symbol armor. He was akin to a human-shaped Terminator, and was completely unafraid of the Third Seat King's Devil Emperor armor. Countless black holes, thunderbolts and silver light would form every time he threw a punch. The strength of the three great ancestral symbols had completely merged together at this moment. This wildness and violence caused even the Third Seat King to have no choice but to be serious. Boom! The eyes of the two were filled with savagery. Each threw a punch forward, and two punches that contained all of their power clashed. Space crumbled and the both of them were thrown several tens of thousands of feet backwards. With a stomp on the air, they once again rushed forward. Almost 100,000 purple gold dragon tattoos rapidly soared. Lindong was now even more powerful than Qingji when unleashing the Green Heaven Dragon materialization skill. Despite this, it was still difficult for him to gain an obvious advantage. The Third Seat King was evidently no ordinary foe. A sea of viscous demonic chi gushed forth and completely received all of Lindong's wild and violent attacks. Ch. Lindong rushed forward as he clenched his hand. The power of three ancestral symbols swept forth and turned into a scepter that glowed with three different colors. Lightning flashed at the tip, while silver light emanated from the center of its body. Its end was completely pitch black, appearing like a rotating black hole. Swoosh swoosh! Lindong's arm shook and the ancestral symbol scepter turned into numerous scepter shadows that covered the sky as they approached the Third Seat King. Door of the Black Devil! A fierce glint flashed in the eyes of the Third Seat King as a demonic palm slammed heavily onto the empty space in front of him. Viscous demonic chi swept out and transformed into a 10,000 feet tall door of darkness that contained an extremely sinister depiction of a devil. Bang bang bang! The scepter shadows that contained the power of three ancestral symbols viciously attacked. Soon after, many cracks appeared on the Black Devil door. Lindong swiftly merged with the ancestral symbol scepter as they rushed forward and pierced the giant door. Swoosh! Silver light suddenly flashed when the ancestral symbol scepter penetrated the giant door. One end of the scepter was still in Lindong's hand, while the other end had strangely appeared behind the Third Seat King as it mercilessly thrust towards his back. Clang! Sparks flew and the body of the Third Seat King shot backwards in a miserable fashion. A deep dent had been left on the Devil Emperor armor on his back. However, before he could become angry, the space around him rippled as countless lightning-infused scepter shadows bizarrely penetrated space and shot towards his fatal spots. Clang clang clang! In the short span of a dozen breaths, all of the scepter shadows had already landed on the Third Seat King's body. Numerous terrible scars had appeared on the sinister Devil Emperor armor, making it look somewhat miserable. Roar! The eyes of the Third Seat King suddenly turned red after being violently beaten. A sharp roar exploded from his throat as he threw a punch. Frightening demonic chi gathered on his fist and turned into glittering black light as the punch was ruthlessly thrown. The light contained dense demonic chi that had been suppressed to the limit. It directly blasted the air apart as it exploded onto Lin Dong's body. Bang! Lin Dong's body was sent flying backwards, and cracks had emerged on the ancestral symbol armor. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth as the blood in his body churned. The third Seat King was indeed worthy of being a peak-level existence within Devil Prison. His fighting strength was the strongest amongst the opponents that Lin Dong had fought with over the years. This fight would definitely be a difficult one. Having forced Lin Dong back, the third Seat King glanced at the damaged Devil Emperor armor that was covered in cracks, and the ferocity in his eyes intensified. He licked his lips and stared at Lin Dong in a sinister fashion. It was unexpected that this seemingly weakest person would actually be so difficult to deal with. Although the main goal today is not to fight with all of you, I am really displeased after being beaten by you in such a manner, the third Seat King grinned said to Lin Dong. Lin Dong narrowed his eyes, not to fight. The third Seat King smiled faintly. He lowered his head and glanced at the seemingly endless fighting below. He was able to sense a bloody and brutal aura that was rapidly accumulating. I have heard of you long ago from those three trash of Yuan Gate. Originally, I believed that you were just an insignificant ant. I would never have imagined that I would one day be pushed by an ant like you to such a state. The third Seat King slowly lifted his right hand. The evil eye in his palm blinked as it looked at Lin Dong, a sight that made one's hair stand on ends. However, I think that I will feel much better if I finish you off before that. Ha ha, after all, I should not leave behind any regrets. Don't you agree? Lin Dong watched as the third Seat King that had suddenly begun to spout nonsense. A faint feeling of unease flashed across his heart for some unknown reason. This eye is called the Prison Devil Eye. It was bestowed to me by the Emperor. Back then, I used it to launch a sneak attack against the symbol ancestor. I believe that you should be satisfied if you die at its hands, right? The third Seat King gently placed his hands together. The smile on his lips was exceptionally twisted. Lin Dong's eyes stared at him in an indifferent fashion. However, he did not show any signs of replying. So boring. The third Seat King's lips involuntarily twitched after seeing Lin Dong's unchanged expression. Soon after, frightening demonic chi swept out from within his body. The demonic chi was extremely thick, and it was even possible to see countless tiny crystals within it. This was a transformation that would only appear when demonic chi agglomerated to a frightening extent. Buzz buzz. Torrential demonic chi flowed into the arm of the third Seat King, causing it to become as black as ink, while the evil eye on his palm emitted a deafening and sharp buzzing noise. The evil ripple instantly grew countless times stronger. The third Seat King sinisterly smiled at Lin Dong. After which, the latter saw his arm wither at a frightening speed. Within a short couple of breaths, it looked as though the blood inside had completely vanished. There was only the evil eyeball left that had become increasingly ferocious and frightening. Bang! The arm of the third Seat King suddenly exploded at this moment as the eyeball escaped from his palm. Demonic chi surged as the eye swiftly swelled. In the short span of several breaths, it was already 10,000 feet in size. The evil eyeball floated high up in the air while monstrous evil demonic chi unfurled. Meanwhile, a frightening fluctuation stealthily spread. Lin Dong gazed upon the menacing giant evil eye, and the expression in his eyes turned a lot more grave as he felt the frightening fluctuations. He deeply inhaled a breath of air and with a clench of his hand, an ancient light formation flew out. The formation expanded and became tens of thousands of feet large. The ancient formation rotated slowly as a pure and ancient power rippled outwards. It was the true ancient universe formation. Ancient universe formation, huh? The third Seat King frowned slightly. Soon after, he stared at Lin Dong and the giant evil eyeball slowly closed. Rumble. The ancient universe formation started to revolve, and a unique curtain of light poured down. The demonic chi that filled the sky showed signs of being forced back. Only that evil eye remained unmoved. However, Lin Dong could vaguely sense a kind of annihilation-like strength rapidly gathering. Such power made one uneasy. Who? Lin Dong breathed in deeply. A cold glint flashed in his eyes as his hands formed a seal. Mighty Yuan power swept out. Hand of the universe? In the sky, the ancient universe formation started to tremble violently. Strange light spread from it and turned into a giant hand tens of thousands of feet in size. The giant hand was covered by ancient runes of light. The hand reached forward, tearing across space as it viciously slammed down onto the eyeball. Ha ha. The third seat king smiled faintly and slowly shut his eyes. Black blood flowed out from the corners of his eyes, and as he shut them, the enormous evil eye suddenly opened. The sky seemed to have suddenly darkened the moment the eyeball opened. Everyone could see the most evil ray of light erupt from within the eyeball. Finally, it clashed with the giant universe hand. Sizzle. The collision between the two did not lead to any terrifying fluctuations. The giant universe hand violently trembled as cracks appeared. With a bang, it was completely blasted apart by the beam of light. The moment the universe hand was shattered, divine light suddenly appeared behind it and an incomparably huge divine palace appeared from out of nowhere. The divine palace stood in a towering manner like the home of the gods, a mighty and majestic sight. Bang! The evil ray of light that had penetrated the universe hand shot across the sky. After which, it once again viciously struck the majestic divine palace. Rumble. A loud buzzing sound resounded over the land. The entire divine palace shook fiercely at this moment. A figure stood tall inside the divine palace. The lightning bow in his hand had been pulled into a full moon, while 3 colors emerged on the arrow marked on it. Moreover, the vast and endless mental energy within the divine palace surged out at this moment and poured into the arrow. Buzz! This arrow vibrated as a torrential divine light exploded from it. The light seemed to suppress even the monstrous evil aura. Lin Dong's arm shook while fresh blood rapidly flowed from his hands. He gently shut his eyes as he slowly released his finger on the bowstring. The entire divine palace unleashed a clear buzzing sound the instant Lin Dong's finger released the bowstring. At the same time, tens of thousands of resplendent divine rays poured into the 3-colored arrow. This arrow was the condensation of all the power within Lin Dong's body. Swoosh! A streak of light shot out from the divine palace. The rays emitted at that very moment seemed to vaporize all the evil aura that permeated the sky. Countless shocked eyes looked over. They watched as the streak of light shot out and violently clashed with the incomparably evil light beam. Boom! An earth-shaking sound appeared. The light was just like the slowly rising scorching sun. Endless demonic chi disappeared under its rays. Break! A hoarse voice slowly spread from within the divine palace. After which, everyone watched as faint cracks started to emerge on the evil light beam which could force back even a peak expert who had experienced 3 reincarnation tribulations. Crack crack! The evil light ray ultimately shattered under the streak of light. The light faded. However, the 3-colored arrow continued on with the same momentum, tearing through the sky and ruthlessly shooting towards the incomparably huge evil eye with lightning speed. Ah! An incredibly miserable cry suddenly emerged from the mouth of the third seat king. One could hear a shattering sound from his eyes. After which, they rapidly caved in and black blood began to frantically flow out. It presented an extremely horrifying sight. Meanwhile, the giant evil eye rapidly shrunk. It ultimately turned into a speck of dim black light that shot back into the third seat king's hand. However, the latter continued to cover his eyes with his hands while ferocious howls rang out from his throat. The divine palace slowly disappeared. After which, it returned to Lin Dong's forehead. His body appeared as his quivering hand wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth. This third seat king was vicious indeed. If it was not because Lin Dong's strength had soared, together with the use of the ancient universe formation, divine palace and the perfect merger of the 3 ancestral symbols into the arrow, it was likely that he would be the one screaming miserably now. The miserable screech of the third seat king spread across the sky. Strangely, however, the devil prison army below momentarily slowed when his terrible scream sounded. The battlegrounds in the sky also showed signs of pausing. However, this was only on the side of Devil Prison. Lin Dong was startled when he discovered this strange scene. He looked at the third seat king, who was screaming in an unresigned manner, as uncertainty rose in his heart. Although the third seat king was gravely injured, he still had it in him to continue fighting. Why was he acting as though death was certain? At the highest part of the sky, the heaven seat king dodged and pulled back. His clothes appeared a little tattered. This was evidently a result of his battle with Ying Huan. He then looked at the miserably screaming third seat king. After which, he glanced at the bloody and brutal aura that permeated the sky. Suddenly, he smiled towards the nearby Ying Huan, whose body was giving off a terrifying cold chi. Old 3, I did not expect that you would actually be the first to be injured. The heaven seat king turned his head, looked at the third seat king and smilingly said. The miserable screech of the third seat king gradually came to a halt. His face was covered in black blood, an exceptionally terrifying sight. The other upper echelons of Devil Prison also stared at the third seat king. Their expressions were somewhat strange and feverish. TSK, that's right, the third seat king wiped the black blood on his face as a strange laughter was emitted. He looked towards Lin Dong and said, You are indeed impressive. Originally, I thought that we would have to fight for a while longer. I did not expect to be so quickly injured by you. Lin Dong frowned. He looked at the somewhat strange third seat king group as unease flashed across his heart. After which, he shifted his gaze and exchanged a look with the Flame Master group, only to see that they were also frowning. The fight is not over. Isn't it a little too early to cry? The Thunderbolt Master laughed coldly. Ha ha, we have fought for so many years. Aren't we already well aware of each other's skills? We might not be able to deal with all of you, but do you think it will be so easy to eliminate us? The Heaven Seat King laughed. Ice Master has said that she is already tired of such an endless charade. Isn't it the same for us? Therefore, we really wish to kill all of you this time around. Can you do it? The Life-Death Master mocked. What do you think? A strange expression once again rose on the Heaven Seat King's face. He smiled towards the third seat king and said, Old 3, since you have lost, you will be the one to open it. The third seat king smiled strangely and nodded after hearing this. After which, he sat down in the sky under the attention of countless pairs of eyes. His hands formed a seal as the black blood flowing down his face became even thicker. An extreme feeling of unease spread. A cold glint flashed across Lin Dong's black eyes when he saw their unusual actions. Silver light flashed and he appeared in front of the third seat king like a phantom. The ancestral symbol scepter in his hand shot out and pierced towards the throat of the third seat king with lightning speed. Puff! The ancestral symbol scepter penetrated through the defenses of the third seat king without any obstruction and shot out through the throat of the third seat king under the numerous gazes of disbelief. Black blood spluttered wildly. The third seat king was killed? A great uproar erupted from with the Alliance army. However, no one was cheering. Everyone could feel that something was amiss. How could this top expert of Devil Prison, who had once forced the 8 ancient masters to fall into slumber or reincarnation, be killed with such ease? Ha ha! The third seat king lifted his head. His bloody face gave Lin Dong a hideous smile. After which, his body began to swell uncontrollably. This is bad. Lin Dong's heart shook when he saw this. Silver light flashed around his body and he disappeared in a flash. Bang! The body of the third seat king suddenly exploded just as Lin Dong disappeared. Viscous black demonic chi and blood flew outwards, covering the entire sky in the process. The liquid-like evil demonic chi mixed with thick blood fell from the sky and landed on the ground below. Lin Dong's body appeared some distance away as a feeling of sweetness rose in his throat. Although he was quick to flee earlier, he was still hurt by the self-destruction of the third seat king. This fellow actually self-destructed? Lin Dong appeared a little dazed as he watched the evil demonic chi spread over the place. He would never have imagined that this third seat king would actually choose to self-destruct. Just what were these fellows planning? Ha ha! The Heaven Seat King pursed his lips slightly as he observed this scene. After which, he smiled towards Lin Dong's group. Next, please take a look at our millennia-long masterpiece. I have long said that you will lose this world war this time. Rumble. The land below suddenly began to tremble violently as the words of the Heaven-Seat King faded. One could see the ground split apart and demonic chi spread. A demonic figure so huge that one was unable to see where it ended slowly stood up from the depths of the land. The demonic figure climbed up from the endless abyss. Its head reached the sky when it stood on the ground. Demonic chi pervaded the air. The figure appeared just like the Emperor of the Devils. This is. Lin Dong's pupils rapidly shrunk as he gazed upon the demonic figure that was accompanied by a terrifying pressure. The demonic figure seemed to possess countless giant demonic arms. At the center of each hand was a tightly shut evil devil eye. These eyes were even more frightening than the evil eye on the hand of the Third Seat King. Devil Emperor Avatar? Ying Huan looked at the extremely frightening demonic figure. An endless chill surged from her pretty face as she slowly uttered each word with emphasis. Everyone, the feast has begun. Thank you for your cooperation. The Heaven-Seat King smiled faintly. He stood in the sky and gently bowed towards the Alliance army. Bang bang bang. Countless explosions sounded from the Devil Prison army as his words faded. Soon after, the countless experts of the Alliance army watched as the Devil Prison army self-destructed one after another. Dense demonic chi mixed with pieces of black flesh accompanied flew. Finally, they entered the Devil Emperor Avatar. Following the influx of this seemingly endless amount of demonic chi, blood, and flesh, the evil eyes on the hands of the Devil Emperor Avatar opened one after another. The world became darker with the opening of each eye. Boom boom. Explosions swiftly continued. The entire desert seemed to have turned into a sea of black liquid at this very moment. The Alliance army hurriedly rose into the air. Their eyes were shocked as they observed this scene. Monstrous demonic chi, along with the bloody and brutal aura created from the earlier battle, continued to enter the Devil Emperor Avatar, opening one eye after another. However, it was not an easy task to open all of the eyes of this Devil Emperor Avatar. Not even half of the eyes on the Devil Emperor Avatar were opened even after the entire Devil Prison army had self-destructed. It is your turn. The Heaven-Seat King looked at the other upper echelons of Devil Prison and softly chuckled. Strange smiles surfaced on the seated king's face when they heard this. There was a fanatical look in their smiles. They quickly sat down and self-destructed in front of the eyes of the ancient masters. Boom boom. Terrifying demonic chi swept over the place, blotting out the sun. The expressions of the ancient masters were very grim. They had failed to kill these fellows after battling them for thousands of years. Yet, in less than half a day, all of them had chosen to self-destruct. What were these fellows planning? Torrential demonic chi, flesh and blood surged into the Devil Emperor Avatar, once again opening many evil eyes. The Heaven-Seat King stood alone in the sky as he smilingly looked at Ying Huan. The strange expression on his face made one shudder. Activating the Devil Emperor Avatar can indeed allow you to possess a strength that is extremely close to the Yimo Emperor. However, such power will not remain for long. Even if you start the activation process, you will still be unable to succeed without the blood and flesh of the Yimo Emperor as a conduit. Ying Huan's icy crystal-like eyes stared at the Heaven-Seat King as she slowly said, "It doesn't matter if all of us die here if we can eliminate you from this world. At the very least, the world will no longer be invaded by the Yimo in future. Since that is so, we can be said to have won." The Heaven-Seat King smiled faintly. How virtuous. However, I'm afraid that the ones who have lost are you guys. The Heaven-Seat King turned his head and looked to the distant east as he grinned. Ice Master, do you still remember that the symbol ancestor had once cut off one of the Emperor's arm when sealing him? The expression in Ying Huan's eyes finally underwent a change when she heard this. Ha ha, you are correct. The arm of the Emperor is still in this world of yours. In reality, you have already lost ever since the symbol ancestor ignited his reincarnation to seal the Emperor. Your symbol ancestor ultimately cannot compare with our Emperor. The Heaven-Seat King knelt respectfully towards the east. Hand of the Emperor, please take your position. While his words resounded over the sky, the land within the unique devil region in the distant eastern Shen region began to tremble. After which, the land crumbled, and a flood of demonic chi swept out. Demonic light pierced the ancient formation sealing the area. After which, it tore through the sky and rushed towards the western Shen region. An enormous white arm was vaguely visible within the black light. Meanwhile, an indescribable evilness engulfed the place. Demonic aura churned and they nearly covered the entire sky above the desert. In fact, the entire western Shen region was affected. Standing beneath the endless demonic aura, the devil avatar looked just like a destroyer that came from another plane. In fact, the evil ripples that it gave off caused the expressions of the Alliance soldiers to change. Lin Dong and the rest were staring at this scene with an ugly expression on their face. All of a sudden, they turned their heads and looked towards the distant sky. At that spot, the sky had suddenly shattered before a frightening amount of demonic aura that would cause one's scalp to turn numb, swept out from within. Meanwhile, one could vaguely spot a massive white arm within the demonic aura. Devil Emperor hand? The eyes of Ying Huan's group shrunk when they saw that massive pale hand. This large hand was exceptionally pale. At a first glance, it even looked a little weak. However, this peculiar sight caused one's heart to shudder instead. This was the arm of the Yimo Emperor, someone who had once forced the symbol ancestor to ignite his own reincarnation. In the past, when teacher sealed the Yimo Emperor, that Devil Emperor arm was most likely not something that teacher cut off. Instead, it was something that the Yimo Emperor secretly left behind. Ying Huan clenched her hands before she slowly said. The pupils of the Life-Death Masters group shrunk. Faintly, they were all bewildered. He was indeed deserving of the title Emperor of the Devils. In fact, even when he was being sealed, he actually managed to leave a secret move behind in preparation of making a comeback several millennia later. The Heaven Seat King stared at the Devil Emperor hand, which had tore through space, with excitement in his eyes, before he bowed respectfully. Following which, his hand seals changed before that Devil Emperor hand rushed over and finally connected with the Devil Emperor avatar. Buzz. The massive Devil Emperor avatar emitted a deafening buzzing sound after the Devil Emperor hand merged with it. Immediately, monstrous demonic aura swept forward, while a frightening ripple was slowly being incubated. This ripple had the same scent as the Yimo Emperor. At this moment, the one tightly shut evil eye on the Devil Emperor avatar was quickly opening up. Meanwhile, it was filled with ruthlessness and brutality, as if he was hell-bent on destroying this world. Ha ha! The Heaven Seat King laughed towards the sky. Meanwhile, his laughter was filled with pride as he said, once the Devil Emperor avatar is formed, all of you will be like mere ants. Ha ha, this world has eventually fallen into our hands. I have actually accomplished what the Emperor failed to do back then. It's too early to be celebrating. At this moment, frightening cold aura erupted. After which, layers of icy waves swept forward at a frightening rate in the sky, before they froze the monstrous demonic aura. Ying Huan was holding onto an ice spear in her hand, while a cold glint was glimmering within her pretty eyes. Following which, her body moved before she charged forward and directly rushed towards the Heaven Seat King. Cold aura gathered at the tip of her spear, and it looked as though it could even freeze time itself. Ha ha, Ice Master, everything you are doing now is pointless. The Heaven Seat King laughed heartily. However, he showed no intention of exchanging blows with Ying Huan. Instead, his body moved before the demonic aura on his body erupted. Then, he actually retreated into the Devil Emperor avatar's large body before the both of them merged in a peculiar fashion. Rumble. The fearsome-looking Devil Emperor avatar grew by 2 folds after the Heaven Seat King merged with it. Meanwhile, the clouds were floating beneath him. In fact, as he swung his numerous devil arms, it looked as though he wanted to tear this world apart. Ha ha, I am currently in possession of strength that is nearly equivalent to the Devil Emperor's. How can all of you possibly fight against me? The Devil Emperor avatar laughed loudly. His laughter was just like thunder and it caused the entire world to tremble. 9 levels Ice Mountain Prison. Ying Huan's hands formed a seal before she released a cold cry. Immediately, cold aura gathered wildly in the sky before they finally transformed into 9 towering ice mountain prisons, which were so tall that they extended beyond one's sight. Finally, they smashed down ruthlessly on the Devil Emperor avatar. Ha ha. However, when he saw Ying Huan's all-out attack, the Devil Emperor avatar laughed nonchalantly. He threw his devil arm forward, and it was accompanied by monstrous demonic aura as it smashed against the ice mountains. Bang! The sky trembled. As the demonic aura surged, the towering ice mountains, which were so tall that they extended beyond one's sight, were all smashed into pieces with a single punch. Standing in the sky, Ying Huan's delicate figure shook. Following which, she quickly retreated. Meanwhile, she furrowed her brows as she stared at that massive devil avatar in the sky. At this moment, the latter indeed possessed strength that was nearly equivalent to that of the Yimo Emperor. What should we do now? The Life-Death Masters group came forward and asked in a deep voice. Clearly, they did not expect the situation to play out like this. It is impossible to attain the strength of a Yimo Emperor simply by relying on such techniques. Ying Huan stared at the Devil Emperor avatar before she said. If they believed that they could possess the same strength as the Yimo Emperor simply by merging together, they would be undermining the strength of the Yimo Emperor. It's true that they are able to attain great strength by relying on this technique. However, this is not a stable method and there is no way that the Heaven-Seek King can control this strength for long. Therefore, as long as we pester him continuously, it is likely that the Devil Emperor avatar will collapse on its own soon. Ying Huan said. The Life-Death Masters group nodded upon hearing this. However, they promptly frowned again. Currently, even Ying Huan could not block the Devil Emperor avatar. Therefore, whether their combined attacks could stop the Devil Emperor avatar was still up in the air. There is no other way. If we finish off the Devil Emperor avatar, it is likely that the world will regain peace and this will be a genuine victory for us. Ying Huan said softly. Following which, she glanced at Lin Dong, who was standing behind her and had not spoken a word throughout, before she involuntarily clenched her icy-cold hands. We do not have much time left. Let me pester the Heaven-Seek King first while he is still getting familiarized with the Devil Emperor avatar's strength. Meanwhile, all of you should gather your strength before launching your attacks at him. Ying Huan suppressed the chaotic emotions in her heart. After which, she ceased speaking. Promptly, cold aura surged beneath her feet before they turned into an ice lotus. Subsequently she sat down on it. The temperature in this place suddenly plummeted. In fact, even the surging natural yuan power stiffened. Lotus Formation World. Ying Huan tapped the empty space with her long finger. Immediately, her bright red blood transformed into glowing specks before they shot forward. Following which, when they landed on the ground was frozen instantly. Meanwhile, numerous massive ice lotuses sprouted forth. Moreover, huge vines, which looked just like dragons, whistled from within these ice lotuses, before they pestered the Devil Emperor avatar from all directions and bound him. Roar! The Devil Emperor avatar struggled. Meanwhile, those huge dragon-like vines were slowly torn apart. However, soon after, an increasing number of vines came rushing over. At the same time, the frightening cold aura invaded the Devil Emperor avatar and slowed its movements down significantly. When the Life-Death Masters group saw this scene, they knew that they could not afford to slight the other party. Immediately, they turned their attention before they looked at Lin Dong and said solemnly, Lin Dong, summon the Ancient Universe Formation. Then, ask every elite practitioner in the Alliance army to pour in all their yuan power into the formation, and attack together with us. Lin Dong clearly knew the gravity of the current situation. Therefore, he did not utter any unnecessary words. Instead, a thought passed through his mind, before the Ancient Universe Formation expanded with the wind and enveloped the sky. All Alliance soldiers listen up, pour all your strength into the Ancient Universe Formation. Those who are at the reincarnation stage should attack together with us. Victory or defeat shall be determined by this one move. The Life-Death Master's juvenile but solemn voice echoed across the place. When they heard this, numerous Alliance soldiers quickly clenched their fists before they cried out in response. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Many figures rose into the sky before all of them appeared behind Lindong. They were all reincarnation stage experts. However, despite their formidable peak-level strength, they looked insignificant in front of the massive Devil Emperor avatar. Down below, amongst the Alliance army, countless soldiers had sat down before their yuan power surged like ocean waves. Finally, they transformed into numerous pillars, before they poured into the ancient universe formation in the sky. Let's make a move too. The Life-Death Master released a deep cry upon seeing this. Promptly, she shut both her eyes, before black and white life-death chi began to surge around her. The Flame Master, Thunderbolt Master, Darkness Master and the rest also shut their eyes simultaneously. After which, the strength within their bodies was pushed to its limits. Big Brother, Little Flame and a few others arrived beside Lindong. When they saw the Devil Emperor avatar, a worried glint flashed across their eyes. There is no need to worry. Regardless of what happens, at the very least, we must fight it out with them. Lindong smiled towards them and said, "Are you all right?" Ling Qingzhu walked gently towards him and asked. After which, she used her bright pretty eyes to stare quietly at Lindong. This was because she saw the previous events that had taken place. Although Lindong might not show it on the surface, it was likely that his heart was not as calm as it seemed. "I'm fine." When Lindong saw Ling Qingzhu's gentle and concerned eyes, he felt warmth in his heart. After which, he slowly shook his head. Then, he turned to look at Little Flame, Qingtan, Little Martin, and the rest, before speaking, "Let's make a move as well. This time around, if we fail, it's likely that the world is doomed." "Aye?" Everyone nodded solemnly before a determined glint flashed across their eyes. After all, at this juncture, there was no way they could retreat. A low roar was emitted from Little Flame's throat, before purple gold light erupted. Following which, his body swelled rapidly before he quickly turned into a 100,000 feet tall giant. However, he was still lacking compared to the Devil Emperor avatar. "Let's give it our best shot. You are the one who saved my life in the past. I am glad and satisfied that I got to live those extra years." Little Martin patted Lindong's shoulder, before a gentle-looking smile, that was rarely seen, appeared on his handsome face. He looked at Lindong as he recalled that many years ago, he was merely a weak and tender young man who had brought along a demonic spirit which could disappear anytime, and a foolish tiger. Following which, one man, one spirit and one beast began their long cultivation journey. After surviving numerous life and death situations together, who could have imagined that they were actually able to reach such heights? "Don't worry. There is no way I will let any of you die so easily," Lindong softly said. "I believe in you." Little Martin gave a faint smile. Then, he gave Lindong a big hug before he softly said, "Big Brother." Following which, purple-black light swept out from Little Martin's body, before he extended his 100,000 feet large wings. Then, he rose into the sky before he pushed the strength within his body to its limits. Huff. Lindong looked at Little Martin before he gave a gentle smile. After which, he sat down in midair and formed a seal with his hands. Immediately, a strange fluctuation spread rapidly, before the land within a 30,000-mile radius began to turn barren. The Great Desolation scripture had begun to reveal its frightening might at this moment. This video will end here.